Goed studente, kom ons gaan verder aan. Ek hoop julle het 'n lekker breek kon gehad het. We're staying with much of the same in terms of sentence structure, and I specifically in the next part want to focus on the way or I almost want to call it the code by which English sentences are formulated. If you have a look at the average English sentence and it's an independent clause, it will always have a subject and a verb, and often always an object. Especially when it's written in active voice. When it's written in passive voice, the object and the subject will just switch over. Then you'll have an object, a verb and a subject. Interessant genoeg word hierdie struktuur ook in Engels gehandhaaf. Strictly speaking, English is also a Germanic language, although it has got lots of influences from Latin languages like French. But the same sentence structure you'll find. You'll also find this sentence structure in German, in Dutch, in Flemish, albei Germaanse tale kry jy dit. Interestingly enough, you also find a similar subject sentence structure in a language like Zulu. The only difference being is that when there are tense changes, this sentence structure changes as well. Another reason to learn Zulu, even if it's just for conversational purposes. Okay. Generally, as I said there, a standard full sentence or standard independent clause in English is written in the active voice. It starts with the subject, thus the S, followed by a verb, thus the V, and it may have an object, thus the O. So the standard English sentence sequence is SVO in active voice. When it's written in passive voice, as I explained it here. Oh no, I don't. Yes, I do. There at the bottom. The object and the subject just swaps over to form a passive. So if you look at the sentence there, the dog eats the bone. Subject, the dog. Verb, eats. The bone is the object. Can also be written without an object. The dog eats, still a subject and a verb. If you write it in passive voice, the subject just switches places with the object. The bone was eaten by the dog. Okay. The question here is, can this be written in a passive voice? And you'll have to wait until we get to active and passive to test that. Okay, let's move on to active and passive itself. Okay, as I said, they're much of the same. If the focus on the subject, if the focus is on the subject that performs something, your sentence is in active voice. Nou wees versigtig hiervoor, want dit is 'n baie algemene riglyn. Dit is nie noodwendig presies so. Maar gaan kyk maar vir wie doen wat. Ask yourself those questions, who is doing what, and then you should find your subject and a verb, and then you can see whether it's an active or passive voice. The passive voice on the other hand, as I explained, the focus is on the person or thing affected by an action. That doesn't make the dominant part of the sentence. That is maar net waar hy dan in die sin self val. All verbs with an object can have a passive form. So om die vorige vraag te antwoord, hierdie sin, daai sin wat ons daar vir jou gewys het, the dog eats, cannot be written in passive voice because it's got no object. While the above one, if we just go back, where is it now? There. This one can be written in passive voice as you see it down here. The other thing that you must know is that the verb changes to past tense once you've written it in passive voice. Okay, let's move on. There's a couple of examples. My heart was broken. There's a subject there, my heart. There's a verb there, was broken, but is there an object? No, so there cannot be a passive form of that. Then, number 6, Stephen King has written many bestsellers. Subject there, Stephen King, has written verb. Many bestsellers is your object. Can we make it passive? Yes, we can by saying many bestsellers has been written or have been written by Stephen King. Number 7, the strike vote is being called for next Monday. The question is there, who is doing what? The strike vote, okay, is your subject. He's being called, it's not physically doing that, but there is a verb there. For next Monday, is that an object? No, it's not. It's supposed describing for when the strike vote is being called for. So that's an adverb. There's no object there, which means there's no passive form. Number 8, the document was written in Halifax in 74, or that document, pardon me, that document is your subject. It was written is your verb. In Halifax tells us when it was written. It doesn't tell us how that verb acts upon it. Therefore, there is also no object, and therefore this cannot be found in passive form. Ekskuus, ek het daarom intussen oorgeslaan na tee toe, maar my keel vat nogal 'n beating as ek so lank klas gee. Goed, let's move on. There's your answers. Active. Active, as I said, it remains active. Die vraag het basies gevra, is het active of passive? Maar in hierdie geval is allemaal active, want ons begin allemaal met die subject. So jy sal sien, dit is hoe dit uiteengesit is in jou semesteropdrag ook. Goed, as ons aanbeweeg, direct and indirect speech. This is the last section of today's class, but it is also a very long section. As ek reg kan onthou, is dit leidende en bedryvende vorm. Hoekom klink dit nou verkeerd? Julle kan my maar reg help met die Afrikaans daarvoor. Mense sal agterkom net so terloops dat hoe meer jy 'n ding doen in taalkunde, hoe meer geoefen raak jy in dit. Ek het agtergrond in Engels en Afrikaans taalkunde, maar ek het so lank as Afrikaanse taalkunde gedoen uit die aard van die werk wat ek doen by AROS, dat ek baie van daai goeders eers weer moet gaan oefen en moet gaan opswat en bietjie gaan doen om hulle weer suksesvol te kan doen soos op die vlak wat ek Engels doen. So onthou dit ook as jy dit moet klas gee of doseer. Okay, let's start off with direct speech. Direct speech, as you can see there, it says uses the exact words of the speaker indicated by using inverted commas. This part is very important. Okay, uses inverted commas. It consists of two parts, and that's where I explain it. A clause containing the introductory verb. So that would mean, for example, Peter said. That is the clause. There's a subject, there's an object, a subject and a verb, so therefore it is a clause, but it is not part of what Peter said. It's simply announcing what Peter says. That's why they call it the introductory verb, and then the actual words spoken in inverted commas. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. Then the indirect speech, it retells what someone said after the word or the words have been spoken. I'm just correcting my sentence there because I see I've got my tense wrong. When you convert it, en dit is baie belangrik, want anders sal dit baie maklik gewees het. When you convert it from direct to indirect speech or vice versa, you need to change, or there's changes in punctuation pronouns, we know that, either the inverted commas are added or taken away, there's changes in the introductory verbs, and there's also very importantly changes in tense. En dit is wat dinge baie ingewikkeld kan maak in sover die verandering van direct na indirect speech of vice versa is. Now what I've done is I've drawn up a table with a summary of my master's wants to work that gives you a guide in terms of what happens to tense when you convert from direct to indirect speech, and then obviously you can go the other way as well. I will put this table on e-class as well as a separate PDF or Word document. So hou die tabel byderhand as jy daai oefening in die of oefeninge in die semesteropdrag gaan doen, dat jy jou tense reg kan kry. You can see there present simple to past simple quite dis voor die hand liggend. Then if we get a sentence in past simple tense, you need to change it to past perfect tense. So that is had, for example. If you get a sentence in present continuous, you need to change it to past continuous. In present perfect, which is has or have, you need to change it to past perfect had. Present perfect continuous. Al wat dit is, alhoewel ons dit nie geleer is nie, is maar net die byvoeging van has or have by die is going of wat ek al die continuous woord al was, continuous verb. Past perfect had been going, or goed. As jy in past continuous and you change it to past perfect continuous, okay? No changes for past perfect continuous, jy kan hom dan word nie terug verander nie. Then you get your modals there, will, can, must, and may. Changes to would, could, have, to, or might, your modal auxiliary verbs. And then there are some exceptions there as well. Ought to, should, would, there should be a comma there, could and might has no change as well. Let's have a look at the couple of examples that we've given there from your semester assignment. I am going to refer back to the table, net om jou 'n idee te gee hoe die tabel werk ook. The first one there is he works in a bank. So the first thing we need to identify is whether the sentence, or what tense the sentence is. It's pretty obvious that it is there in present tense. Works is your verb. Now if we look at our table, we'll see it needs to go from present to past for indirect speech. So we say there, she said that he works, changes to worked in a bank. She said that he worked in a bank. Number 2, we went out last night. Went is obviously past tense. What happens to past tense? Let's have a look at our table. Just a second. Past tense to past perfect. So your answer there should be, she told me that, we changes to they, had, not went out last night, had gone out last night. So dit is nogal iets om jou kop te hou en wat mens nie altyd meer in ag neem. Number 3, I'm coming, which is the same as I am coming. It is present continuous tense, and if we look at our table, we know present continuous changes to past continuous, so that should read, she said that, she, because we need to refer back to the same pronoun, she was coming, met past continuous to mark. Let's have a look, check our answers. And there we have it. She said that he worked in a bank. She told me that they had gone out last night, past perfect. And from present continuous to past continuous, she said that she was coming. Dit wil nie altyd reg klink op die oor nie, maar hierdie riglyne is vas. Daar is nie regtig veel veranderlikes daar agter nie. Goed, na daai slukkie tee, kom ons kyk nou nog 'n paar. Number 1 daar, in this case we know this is an indirect speech because there's no inverted commas. She said to me that she didn't know where her bag could be. Die tense daar, didn't. Okay, did not do not present, so this is past tense. What happens when we go from past tense back to indirect speech? Okay, let's just follow our guideline. So our indirect speech is in past simple. It needs to go back to present simple. Let's move down again. She said to me that she didn't know where her bag was. She said. En dan kan ons besluit, gaan ons 'n komma of 'n dubbelpunt gebruik. Or she said to me, komma of dubbelpunt, die that val weg. She changes to I, when it's the she that's talking. I do not know where her changes to my bag can be. Onthou, hier is 'n modal verb. Hy moet ook van past na present toe terug. So she said to me, comma of dubbelpunt, open inverted commas, I do not know where my bag can be, closed inverted commas. Ons gaan nou kyk hoe lyk dit as ons die antwoorde gee. Number 2, the doctor told me not to take more than 2 glasses of water that day. Okay? Definitely indirect speech. The doctor told me, okay, dubbelpunt of comma, open inverted commas, do not take more than 2 glasses of water. Okay, goed, kom ons kyk net eers na ons tense daar, voordat ons verder gaan. Take is in die present tense, okay, om dan van present terug te gaan, as die indirect speech in present tense is, dan vat jy dit terug na, hoe moet jy dit terugvat na direct speech toe? Daai bly dan dieselfde. Okay, so you can say that the doctor told me, comma of dubbelpunt, jy kan kies tussen daai twee, open inverted commas, do not take more than 2 glasses of water today, that day. Okay, daai tydwoord verander weer. Ek dink, as ek reg onthou, is today, maar dit kan ook, ons gaan nou kyk na die antwoord. So die belangrike ding, daai tydwoorde kry mens nie baie nie, maar ons gaan nou kyk na daai antwoord. Number 3, I asked him if he had liked the film. We find that this is had liked, is in past perfect tense, and we know from our table, if it's an indirect in past perfect tense, it needs to go back to past simple tense. Okay. If it's an indirect in past perfect tense, it needs to go back to past simple tense. Let's move on. Ons moet weer terug daarna toe. Goed. Excuse, daar was ek vir die antwoorde. So your sentence is, I asked him. Okay. Double point of comma, open inverted commas. Did you, kan jy sien hoe verander dit? Like, past perfect, yeah. Did, ja, like is past tense. Is ek nou reg? Kom ons maak dit seker, excuse. I asked him, comma, of punt, comma of double punt, okay. Did you like the film? Kom ons kyk of dit sin maak. Ons kyk gou na die antwoorde. Ek kan nie onthou wat ek gedoen nie. Did you like the film? Ja, presies wat ek daar gesê het. Hy past perfect gaan terug na past simple toe. Presies soos wat ons tabel ook vir ons aangedui het. Maar natuurlik dit verander na vraag met 'n vraagteken by, open toe aanhalingstekens. Ek kies vir daai breinvloute daar, ek nou vir oomblik heeltemal vergeet hoe ek dit uitgewerk het. Okay, so that is as far as your continuous assessment task goes. And would you believe it, that is also the end of our second video today. I'd like to wish you all of the best for the week ahead. Onthou asseblief 11de Mei moet hierdie semester opdrag nommer 2 ingehandig word, 1 minuut voor 12. And your E-class test on adverbs will be up by tomorrow and it closes on Saturday 1 minute to 12. Alles van die beste, tot ziens.